Hello and welcome to the ADM Investor Services Weekly Market Kickoff. Please note that the views and opinions expressed here today are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or Archer Daniels Midland. Today's panelists are Alan Bush, our Senior Financial Economist, and Mark Soderberg, our Senior Ag Market Specialist. Starting with the grains. Mark, soybean crush on Friday was stronger than expected. Do you look for the USDA to change their usage forecast?
I do, Jeannie. An Nova crush at just over 186 million bushels on Friday was well above expectations of 178 million bushels. It was a new record high for the month of February, and on average, at just over 6.4 million bushels crushed per day was a new record high for any month. We continue to see soybean crush capacity expand to support the growing renewable diesel industry. I calculate that in the first 6 months of the 23-24 marketing year, crush is now running 5.6% above year ago versus USDA forecasts of up 4%. So I look for the USDA to raise their forecast 30 million bushels in the April WASDE report. I do suspect, however, that much of that usage will be offset by lower exports, keeping ending stocks just over 300 million bushels. How much of a reduction in exports we see will largely be driven by where final Brazilian production falls, whether it's closer to the USDA estimate at 155 million metric tons or CONAB's estimate from Brazil. They're at 147 million metric tons. Right now, I'm leaning towards somewhere in between 152 million metric tons is my estimate.
All right. Can you give us an update on South American crops?
Yeah, soybean harvest in Brazil is now just past the halfway point. It was at 63% as of late last week, while my estimate at 152, that's down 10 million metric tons from last year's record crop. It's still the second highest on record. In Argentina, I look for production to reach 52 million metric tons. Now, that's up 2 from the USDA estimate in March. Combined production from Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay, I've got it at a record at 214 million metric tons. That's up 9% from a year ago, largely because of the big rebound in Argentina. In corn, a lot of growing season left here for the second crop in Brazil, with plantings basically just wrapping up. The gap between the USDA and CONAB in production estimates is even wider than they are in beans. USDA is at 124, while CONAB is just under 113 million metric tons. Either way, production will come in well below last year's record crop of 137 in Brazil. Rains later this week are expected to bring some relief to the drier areas of west central Brazil and south central parts of the country, so key to the second crop development. In Argentina, where harvest is really in its very early stages, I look for production at 57 million metric tons. That's a record, and that would be up 1 million metric ton from the current USDA estimate.
All right, thanks, Mark. What's the latest with the war in Ukraine?
Well, unfortunately, the number of drone and missile attacks have escalated here in recent weeks. Russian attacks this weekend over the port city of Odessa did damage to a number of agricultural export facilities. Its precise impact on their export capabilities is not yet known. However, I think it should provide some underlying support here to wheat prices with very little war premium left. To date, Ukraine's ability to adapt to an ever-changing conditions has been really quite remarkable. While grain exports since last July at 32 million metric tons, that's down 9% from a year ago. Actual wheat shipments at just under 13 million metric tons, they're up 5% from a year ago. So, and also, it's no surprise to anyone, Russian President Putin was reelected to another 6-year term here over the weekend, while U.S. lawmakers continue to debate additional funding for the war-torn country of Ukraine.
All right, thanks, Mark. Moving over to the financials. Alan, there is a heavy slate of central bank policy meetings this week. What are their likely outcomes?
Okay, well, first of all, we'll have the Bank of Japan holding a 2-day policy meeting today and tomorrow. So tomorrow is when we'll get an announcement, and there's a very good chance that they will eliminate their negative 10 basis point policy. possibly moving rates to unchanged. So this will be the first rate hike in 17 years from the Bank of Japan. Also, we'll have the Reserve Bank of Australia holding its policy meeting Tuesday, and they are expected to keep their key rate unchanged. Their cash rate likely to be 4.35%. And of course, then the Federal Reserve this week with a two-day meeting with a decision announced on Wednesday. No change in policy is expected at that meeting. In fact, only a 1% chance of a rate cut at the Wednesday meeting, a 99% chance of no change. So analysts are becoming more confident that any interest rate reductions will probably occur later this year, especially after the recent Consumer Price Index and Producer Price Index reports both came in stronger than expected. So the next rate change likely to be at the June meeting with a 25 basis point rate hike, a rate cut. However, those possibilities are diminishing as we get closer to that meeting. Bank of England on Thursday will probably keep its key rate unchanged, and the Swiss National Bank also on Thursday also likely to keep their interest rate steady.
All right, Alan, what is your outlook for the interest rate market futures?
Well, the fundamentals and technicals still appear to be bearish on balance for futures, especially at the short end of the curve and also at the mid curve as well. We have seen some new lows for the move at the short end and mid curve, and also the longer end of the curve futures. The bonds are approaching lows for the move. So nothing really changing as far as what I can see in these markets. Looks like the trend is lower across the board. So I would look for additional pressure to remain in the interest rate market futures.
All right, Alan, lastly, what other market moving reports and events are scheduled for this week we should be aware of?
Okay, Tuesday we'll have housing starts guessed at 1.449 million. Permits anticipated to be 1.5 million. Wednesday, of course, the Federal Open Market Committee meeting. Plus, we'll have Fed Chair Powell holding a press conference afterwards. So the decision will be announced at 1 o'clock Central Time. The press conference at 1:30 Central Time. Those are as they have been. Wednesday. So that'll be all we'll have really on Wednesday. But Thursday, jobless claims. Also Thursday, the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index anticipated to be -5. The March PMI Composite guessed at 51.5. And then on Friday, we'll have Federal Reserve Chair Powell speaking in what is called a Fed Listens event. So we may not get a lot from Powell, but he will be attending, and there may be some comments from him on Friday.
All right, thank you both for your time. Remember, the views and opinions expressed here today on this video are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. If you'd like more information about our brokerage services, please visit admis.com. Thank you.